Most recently we worked on the MrBeast Games for Amazon.
Such a great game.
Great game, great show.
Yeah,
on the platform, right?
Well.
We hit trending in Discover. I think peaked at like 30,000 concurrent for the name. It's like kind of an inside joke that went too far. It wasn't small changes, it was a total overhaul. And I'll send both of them to you to show like the before and after.
Yeah, thank you.
But instantly saw it go from like, 50 to 100 CCU to like 1500 to 2000. You can test any wacky idea you have.
That's great advice. No one thinks of that. I think a lot of people are.
But that's like one of the most challenging questions for this ecosystem.
From now on, I'm going to be asking every guest fun rapid fire questions just to end the show, basically. Here's your rapid fire round. So you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. I'm Matthew Zanazzo, better known as Immature Gamer, and this is the Creative Juice Podcast. Our guest today, Kevin Marciano, went from running film and TV projects that landed on Netflix to becoming CEO and co-founder of Future Trash. His studio keeps lighting up Fortnite with chart-topping creations from Boom Tycoon series to MrBeast Games and a growing lineup of polished new modes. Inside the episode, you'll learn how a single thumbnail swap tripled their CCUs, why slimming your download size can rescue a launch, and the behind-the-scenes plan for Boom Tycoon 2. Brands, IP owners, developers, and every tinkerer looking to level up, this conversation is packed with insight you can put to work right away. Let's dive in.
This is Creative Juice.
All right. Hey, Kevin, how you doing?
I am doing well. How are you doing?
Doing good, brother. Doing good, man. This has been a long time in the works. I think we've been talking about this for over a year, but I'm so glad to finally get you on and just hear about everything you've been doing with FODE, and just a huge fan of yours, honestly, and your team. And I've gotten to know you over the past few years, and you're just a great person. So I'm really happy today to be able to just chat with you.
Dude, thank you so much. I am so stoked to be here. It's always a fun chat with you, and really excited to share more about our journey and some exciting stuff we have planned looking forward.
Amazing. So yeah. So before we just get into the studio and projects and stuff like that, I kind of want to rewind for a second and just want to ask you, all right, real quick. This is actually a huge moment for the podcast. This is our first ever sponsored segment. And honestly, I could not be more excited about who it's with. I've partnered with TMNT to launch a UEFN Builder Challenge, and there's $25,000 up for grabs. They just dropped a brand new set of TMNT tools inside of UEFN, and the challenge is simple. Use them, build something incredible, and show the world what you can do. I'll be helping judge alongside other UEFN ambassadors, and we'll be looking for the best and most creative maps out there. If you are a creator, this is seriously one of the coolest opportunities to get your work noticed and rewarded. You have until May 29th to submit your entry. Hit TMNTPicks.com to get all the details and submit your map. That's TMNTPicks.com. Submissions close May 29th. Can't wait to see what you all create. Now let's get back to the show. What was one of the first games or creative moments that made you think, I want to make stuff like this someday?
I've always been passionate about interactive storytelling, immersive storytelling, and world building. But my roots are really in film and TV. That was kind of where my creative passion first started. I was working at an independent animation studio for a number of years. My first job out of college, actually, where I got to be involved in the concepting, production, distribution of an original IPTV series called Miraculous Ladybug. It's on Netflix and Disney Channel. And that was the first time I got to really experience what it was like to scale out an original concept for global franchise success. So it was a really creatively rewarding experience. And then, one of the verticals of the business that I was responsible for was licensing in mobile gaming. And so we shipped a few mobile games, and they were, kind of home runs. And that was my first, experience getting my feet wet in video games. I grew up playing games. Zelda is probably the thing that inspired me the most. But I didn't think I was going to be, if you would have asked me 10 years ago if I was going to be, the CEO of a game studio, I wouldn't have predicted that.
Great. So I got to ask another follow-up question then on this one, because I want to know what your turning point was when you knew you weren't just, playing Zelda, playing other games. When was it okay, I'm going to go and create them?
Yeah, it was when I connected with Nate and Scott, my business partners, who are in inspiring alchemy of talents, who created the FODE characters, and from the first image that they shared with me, and I'll share it with you after this so you can put it on screen.
I appreciate that.
Instantly captivated me, thinking like, wow, this is a world. This is a thing that gets me wanting to jump into it, and I know would be well positioned to be like the next big franchise in the gaming space. But so much more beyond that, like really being like an omnipresent like original IP that extends into animation, consumer products, etc. And so yeah, so like it was when Nate and Scott approached me with the FODE look and feel and brand identity that I was like, ready to jump in head first and figure out how we can, find an audience for it.
No, that's super cool. So, okay, this is perfect because I want to talk about the name, your name. So I think the first thing everyone notices is the name. So where did the name Future Trash come from? And I think you kind of gave us a little bit about it, but what's kind of like the story behind it?
Yeah, it's funny. We get that a lot. I wish there was some, super deep, meaningful story with a lot of layers for the name. It's like, kind of an inside joke that went too far. We collectively kind of have like a cynical, self-deprecating sense of humor, and we're joking around that like most game studios have, names that sound like they're saving the world, and we were just like, yeah, we're just making games, and it's just, we embrace the junk. And so Future Trash was kind of just kind of an off the cuff thing, saying like, yeah, let's not take ourselves too seriously. And that's kind of the attitude we have for FODE. And then, so Future Trash is the name of our game studio. And then FODE is the name of our flagship IP that we've been working on for quite some time.
No, that's awesome. And I definitely want to talk about IP because you, I think, are the only ones, at least as far as I know, at least came into this space with an IP first in mind. So one thing that makes Future Trash stand out is that you just didn't build a game, you built like a universe, right? And so you started with FODE, an original IP, and before launching anything playable, like what inspired that decision? I think it's so fascinating, this approach.
Yeah, it's been a journey, and truth be told, it started in 2022. It was during a time when Web3 gaming was super, topical.
Yeah.
And, and Scott had crafted the FODE IP, the brand identity. And Nate built this incredible tool in UEFN to procedurally generate FODEs in real time. And so that kind of lent itself into this, like the NFT culture that was like in the zeitgeist in that moment. And we totally bought into it. We thought, if there's any use case for blockchain technology, and, it probably would be gaming, ownership of digital assets has existed in games for quite some time. And so that was like the original, kind of thesis. And then, very quickly we learned that like the market size for gamers who really cared about any of that stuff was relatively small or non-existent. And so, we had told ourselves we wanted to build a playable game before we did any of that stuff, like launching a token or selling an NFT. And so we had built, a vertical slice that we put out on Steam. We're still super proud of it. It exists. You can go request early access and go demo it. That's like the FODE core game built in UEFN. And you should actually demo that generative tool to procedurally generate these game-ready characters, which is super neat. So we were really on that path. And then we had, pivoted away from all things crypto or Web3 and wanted to focus on the IP and building a great game. And we very quickly learned the challenges of a self-published indie title on Steam. And that was around March 2023. And very serendipitously was GDC, where Tim Sweeney got up on stage and announced UEFN, and it kind of like took us aback. And we said, hey, like we've just spent 9 to 10 months building our world in UE5. Let's see what can port over into UEFN. At first, like really not knowing anything about the ecosystem, not knowing much about UGC ecosystems in general, but we leveraged where our creative sensibilities were guiding us, and we launched our first game, which was a MOBA light experience, which was a learning lesson in itself, but it did turn the heads of quite a few in the developer community and at Epic, and kind of put us on the map. And from there, we were able to rapidly iterate, make new games, and build a community in UEFN.
Yeah, so if you're listening in the audio, sorry, but I'll put a video up of the game, and it really, I remember. I literally, that's how like impactful it was, because I think your team was the first to like publish and use the UEFN tools to like its fullest, really. So like the game was just insanely polished. It looked amazing. I mean everything was customized. You know what I mean? We we haven't seen something like that at all in Fortnite creative. So you guys kind of like you said, you like came on right on time, like right at the beginning. And then you also had just your IP already kind of made this game. So you guys, the game was even really fun. So it was the bombs, right? They were kind of like going into the zone and you were trying to.
Yeah, you have two kind of points of interest. There's two teams, and yeah, our FODEs are kind of you know there's red team, blue team, and you have your FODEs marching towards the other team's base, which was a giant statue, kind of like a posed FODE, like a giant golden statue, your like shrine almost. And yeah, so it was a combination of like PvP where you could either like focus on eliminating your enemies, but then risk, your FODE minions getting, back attacking your shrine, so you could take them out. So yeah, kind of like a MOBA light experience.
It was super awesome. And unfortunately for the Fortnite players, especially back then, we're not expecting anything off of PvP. But unfortunately, I think that's kind of still not much has changed, unfortunately, while we're talking today. But that game was amazing, man. You guys really did crush it. So I want to tee this up to my next question, actually, Kevin. And basically, so like, how has like FODE and your IP shaped how you approach content now? Like, how do you, when you're making your games and things, like how does your IP kind of like, go into that process?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think like, reputation is that like we craft experiences that look and feel different than Fortnite, right? And that's the use of custom assets. It's really developing a visual language, and all the credit goes to Nate and Scott for being able to like really hone in on a consistent aesthetic and brand identity that connects all of our game experiences. And that's really like our calling card and like the way we are thinking about IP development in the future. It's kind of like, how do we reinforce characters? We have our hero FODE characters that have, popped up in multiple different games. And over time, creating a thread in between these experiences. Like those are like the kind of like macro goals. We're still figuring out the balance between how far to push originality versus, appealing to the audience's expectations. And we think like we're figuring it out. But yeah, like those things are essentially like the tenets of building a brand. How do you create strong visual language, world building, characters, and though we try our best to reinforce those in every experience that we ship.
Great answer. Thank you for sharing all of that. And I love this deep dive, like really into like your history and how you've been transitioning, and then everything you do to put into your games. And you are right. Like people know when they see a FODE, they see your games, they know exactly who it is. And I think that's actually really important. So you guys, no one's doing it better right now than your team. So congrats on that. So I want to kind of pivot and talk about kind of your ideas and how you make them a reality, really. So I'm always curious about how creators go from the idea of something that's live and playable. What is your typical process when a new idea sparks? Like, how does it go from concept to launch?
Yeah, it's a great question. And there's not really a one size fits all answer, as you can imagine.
Yeah.
We do weekly playtests where everybody from the team brings a game that they've seen in the ecosystem that they want to play and share why we're talking about it and learn from it. So that's like kind of like one source of inspiration, just like trying to stay as in touch with the the creative community as much as possible. Some ideas are organically incubated internally. We're also like super like blessed and fortunate that we have a lot of inbound requests from other creatives and influencers and content creators who want to collaborate with us, and we really enjoy those opportunities as well. We feel like we have so much to learn from others in this space and also have so much to offer, and so like can find a really symbiotic relationship where we leverage what we're really good at and can also learn and leverage what the other brings to the table. So we really enjoy exploring those types of like partnerships as well. And if we want to get really granular about the process, like it always starts with a Miro board,
Okay.
where all ideas are thrown onto kind of a flow chart of the game design. I'm happy to share with you one of these for the video. Because they're super cool, and like Nate does a really great job of making it immersive and like branded and like just like it's like the blueprint for the building that we're about to build. It's really cool. And so that's kind of like phase one, and then kind of parse it down or peel back certain features that are you kind of boil it down to like MVP, and then what's in update 1, update 2. You need to validate the MVP first, and yeah.
Dude, awesome. So is there like any, I don't know, like I kind of want to understand, like, you guys make your games, they're amazing. is there any time or any process, and this is kind of maybe a curveball question a little bit, but like, is it like, are you guys just start making your games? Have you ever been like, this ain't it, like we got to go back to the drawing board, or like something that you started making turn into something else? Is there anything you can like...
Yeah, we've had a lot of those.
Okay.
We do community playtests on Fridays, and that, can't tell you how invaluable the feedback is that we get from others, at every step of the process. We've had instances where we get far along in the development, and then due to either technical limitations, we need to kind of pivot the concept. That happened with us with Boom Tycoon 2 last year, and then we pivoted into Boom City. And so it's really important to get feedback in our view, and we try and be as methodical as possible. We put together a little survey, gather feedback, make informed decisions. But I will say there's also a huge element of just kind of go with your gut. It's so if you overanalyze, you can find yourself not making progress or questioning things that you think feel like can really be different and have a positive impact. So it's tricky, but we look at kind of everything in terms of when we decide to make a game, if it's going to be which audience we're appealing to, how big is that market size, who's the competition, like kind of drilling down, like, what is the risk assessment and the opportunity for each game.
That's super smart. So you've been in this space long enough to know like what players love and kind of what falls flat. How do you balance making something totally original versus leaning into what's already been trending in Fortnite? And I know this is I think most studios have this struggle or trying to balance this, or anyone I've talked to especially has kind of like, I want to make these games. This is what I want to make, but it's also like kind of scary to post something that's, in this ecosystem right now that is original.
Yeah, totally. I mean, that's the name of the game for us, is like striking that balance between originality and meeting the audiences, the players where they are and their expectations. And for us, a lot of it, like, we can borrow a lot of conventional mechanics that we know work in, whether it's from tycoons or PvP maps. And then kind of the things I was mentioning before, that visual language, the custom assets, the materials, the textures, like the characters, like that we can strategically place in there to give it the FODE look and feel. UI and UX is something that we've been complimented a lot for. That gives the game just like a different feeling than just conventional Fortnite mechanics. But yeah, and when it comes to like game modes and genres, like it's tough not to fall into like just making the very obvious game modes. But then when you see others who hit home runs in terms of pioneering new genres, shout out to the TerraVision folks making Havoc Hotel. That stuff gives us a lot of encouragement, and
Lumberjack Heroes and
Lumberjack
stuff like
Heroes,
that.
incredible. So really bullish on opportunities for new game modes and genres to build their audiences on the platform.
Totally. I think you will have the right sauce too. You have the recipe to be able to make that genre and blow it up. So yeah, it's there's always that carrot. It's like, oh man, I just want to make a red versus blue right now and get these plays. But it's also being the first to something is just, it's that feeling is amazing. Being able to create something, and you guys kind of have done that. I remember that early on, like, you guys really evolved the tycoon genre, and it was really fun. I think you guys, and maybe this is something we can talk about a little bit right now, but like, you were I think you guys, and maybe still are, but you're being held back by the engine. Really? Is that some safe assumption?
Yeah, in a lot of ways.
Yeah,
like one of the learning lessons from Boom City, which was, a boss fight map with like a whole quest system and everything. We learned something by coming through the data that like our project size was pretty we're getting a lot of clicks, but not a lot of plays. So there's a huge fall off there. And so like that like showed us that like, oh, we are losing players because the game is taking too long to download.
Interesting.
That informed us like, okay, we need to do a huge optimization pass and get that download size down. Otherwise, we're just gonna never be able to compete in discovery. And so yeah, like we're staying like super in tune with like the data, and very grateful that Epic is evolving the analytics that we have access to.
Did you find that there's the data on that's not very strong, I guess.
Yeah, you should have seen before the latest updates came out with click-through rate and everything, and the spreadsheets we had exporting all the CSVs and doing it was a whole job in itself.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean, the staying in tune with the technical tools and like some of the limitations there has been a challenge for us, but it's also like one of our greatest strength.
Hey, for sure. And like, you're definitely, just because you're in it, you're pushing the limits. You guys are going to find different ways to be able to innovate. I think Fortnite Creative 1.0, a lot of innovation came because we were so limited, and that still holds true today. I think the average person is not as limited at UEFN, just to be fair, who's ever listening. But it's, I think if you go play a photo experience, you'll understand what we're talking about. They are fully fleshed out, amazing experiences. Let's talk about brands, because you kind of mentioned it earlier a little bit, and like working with influencers and brands. I always love to ask this question. Sometimes I think we do have some people in that space as well that listen in. So you've also had a chance to work with brands, which brings its own creative challenges sometimes, right? How do you turn a brand's world into something that still feels fun, playable, and uniquely you?
Yeah, it's a great question. We're pretty selective about the brand work we take on. It has to kind of make sense for us from a relationships perspective and still feel like it can fit in the FODE world, right? Like FODE as being this kind of ethos in the ecosystem. And so most recently we worked on the MrBeast Games for Amazon.
Such a great game. Such
great
a cool
game, great show.
Yeah.
And a lot of and it had a lot of success on the platform, right?
Well.
We hit trending in Discover. I think peaked at like 30,000 concurrent, held on to some players, good playtime. And a lot of that stems from a lot of trust that the clients gave us. And we were pretty clear about that from the beginning, saying, hey, like, this is really exciting, but like, you kind of need to trust our sensibilities if we want to have a high likelihood or higher likelihood of success. There was discussions about the thumbnail, there was discussions about a variety of different things. And ultimately, we're really grateful that they did trust us, and we achieved their goals of brand awareness in Fortnite. We had over 4 million plays and really drove, traffic to the show. So ultimately, like, a lot of it comes down to trust. Like, if we're going to work on a branded project, like, we want to have the confidence that we'll be able to kind of drive the ship, and respecting, brand guidelines for sure. Like, for example, like when the conversation first started, they had a strict no guns policy. We're like, okay, like we can work with that.
Sorry for laughing. Over 90% of the games that are played have weapons, maybe more than that, like 95. So that's why I laughed so much.
Yeah, exactly. And then to the thumbnail, like, oh, like, let's put our logos in there. Like, I don't know what's more important to you, an impression in Discovery, or actually getting someone to click in and spend 28 minutes, in an immersive branded experience. And so, thankfully, it all went smoothly, and can use that as a case study to, encourage brands to trust the creators, the people who are actually making these things, more than whatever they think like their ideas are going to work best.
I think that's a great lesson, actually. And anyone listening, they're hiring the right team, they're looking at the right team that's they're tried and true. Should be listening to them. They kind of know what's going on in this space. MrBeast, and that was a few months ago. But if you were to look at a lot of brand activation, especially custom maps, like fully built custom maps, not integrations, I can name on one hand, something that's really taken off and done that well. So that's a huge testament to what you guys have been able to do, because that is very hard. Lots of people have tried, and that's amazing. So good job on that. That game was so much fun. You're right. The show was awesome too. Me and my family watched it. We couldn't wait every day. And go play the game if you haven't. It was really, really fun kind of spin on Death Run, only up-ish. I don't know, what I mean? Kind of same, that genre, but it's really cool. So no, man, congrats on that success. And I'm excited to see what more stuff you guys keep doing.
Thank you.
So let's move on to the next question. We are flying through this. I love it. This is perfect. So creating something great is one thing, but getting people to find it is a whole other game. What worked best for you when it comes to launching a map and pulling players in on day one?
Yeah, it's a great question. Spend a lot of time dissecting thumbnail, the alchemy of a thumbnail. Actually want owe a lot of credit to a friend we've made in the community, and give him a little shout out. I know I've been doing a lot of shout outs, but his name is Johnny Blueprint, and he is he's been an incredible resource. I don't know if you know Johnny.
Yeah, I know who he is. I don't know if we've probably talked on Twitter or X or whatever before, but Yeah, I know who he is.
I make a lot of jokes that he's like our oracle, our sage, you know, just because he makes observations about thumbnail design and choices that seem so obvious but often go overlooked,
Mm.
or just like the most minute thing that you would never think can actually make a difference. But in our experience, like, you know, he's been very generous with like you know, offering advice. I mean, we've seen the impact of it.
Amazing.
And so I can't stress enough, like that is the single most marketing that you can do, is like, yeah, the thumbnail design. And then, you know, we've collaborated with influencers, content creators who have big YouTube followings. That's an amazing way to kickstart the engine and discovery, spike that concurrent player, but ultimately, like, the game still needs to perform and be competitive with all the other metrics that kind of hold its spot in discovery. We haven't found our you know, our formula yet for our owned and operated social channels. Is we're creating content every day, but yeah, I think we're still, you know, exploring different strategies. We want to do a better job of you know, kind of profiling the team, the behind the scenes of the dev team who are working on these things. I know that's a you know, an effective way to build communities around indie games.
Yeah.
So yeah,
No, it's really tough. A lot of studios and a lot of teams, a lot of individual creators struggle with that, right? A lot of them don't want to be influencers. We want to make games. And unfortunately, that's the current meta. That's the current, basically how you bring people in. You kind of need some social media push. Epic's been public about it. They give us metrics on how many people you're bringing off platform. So, you know, it's definitely something that I know it's tough, and especially like you have your own IP, but like it's like how, like trying to intermingle everything and knowing what works and what doesn't. It just takes so much time, man. It's a tough time. But you guys been doing well. Like you guys have been posting some like dev updates and kind of tips and tricks. I think Nate and all those guys too has been posting some really cool things. So, you know, you guys are doing really well, I think, on that front. I want to go back to the thumbnail stuff because I think I want to ask kind of a follow up on that. I think it's kind of interesting. Like, have you ever changed something small? Like you kind of mentioned the small change, like on the thumbnail or a title, you know, and like what did it like? What was the impact? I guess so. Like, what was that little change? And do you remember like kind of the impact? Like, I kind of think that's really funny because people sometimes they don't see something's working, so they just really change their whole thumbnail, or they just kind of go. You know, you can't really control it or kind of understand what the change was when you do that. So, you know, it's actually sometimes micro changes. Sometimes it's even changing a facial expression, something silly. Or you know, I'll give you some time to think on it. But yeah, is anything come to mind?
Yeah, I got a few thumbnail stories.
Okay.
You know, one was Boom City. We had a very cinematic, rendered, posed thumbnail, and we were in Epic's pick, so we were, you know, getting the fire hose of impressions, right? There was, you know, a lot flowing, but we weren't seeing that conversion. And then you know, we got advice to, you know, with a few, it wasn't small changes, it was a total overhaul, and I'll send both of them to you to show like the before and after.
Yeah, thank you.
But you know, instantly saw it go from like, you know, 50 to 100 CCU to like 1500 to 2000, and so like saw like that kind of like hockey stick growth from just swapping that out. On the Beast Games one, toggled between the exact same framing and pose, but a different color of the background and different skins. We saw what happened there. And then while we were in Epic's picks, again, that's the best time if you want to get experimental or freaky with thumbnails. Like, just do it then, like, right? Like, 'cause then you like can you really have like guaranteed impressions for 1 week, and you can test any wacky idea you have.
That's great advice. No one thinks of that. I think a lot of people are scared to update when they're in Epic picks.
Oh no, if you get into Epic's picks, you should have like as many thumbnails as you can, like on standby to just like rapidly test, and you can see the results very quickly.
Great advice.
But yeah, I'm trying to think of anything else that was like more of like the small change that made a big impact. I think like the closest thing would be like, yeah, swapping out the skin in the parkour thumbnail made a big impact.
No, that's awesome. Thank you for that story. And yeah, I think there's a lot of lessons I'm learning over here. So thank you, Gavin. So I want to kind of touch on this. And, you know, I think it's been a tough space for studios currently, and there's been some people coming out publicly talking about it. I think we even have a moderation chat. We had the ecosystem chat recently with Epic. So you've been doing this for a while, and lots of creators burn out, pivot, or disappear. So what's helped you and your team stay creatively focused and motivated over time?
It's a great question. And we're just so excited and optimistic about what the future of UEFN is. I personally also like really just get excited talking to other creators and what they're working on. Anytime I see a new map, I like pop off. I'm like, want to hear the origin story of how this was made. I want to talk to the person. I want to like see if there's any opportunities we can explore to collaborate. It's I think, another thing for us is like we stay pretty like locked in and focused on the creative development. We don't really get sucked into any kind of drama or anything like that. We just try and stay focused on like the positive. And it's just been a really rewarding opportunity for us to be able to play in the sandbox. We're very grateful to have a lot of like strategic support. We're in it for the long haul. In my previous professional career, working in like kind of traditional linear entertainment distribution, et cetera. There's so many gatekeepers for content. You develop a pitch, you got to go talk to a creative executive at a studio. They got to get on board. Then there's so many barriers to letting creatives like get their ideas out there. And that's like totally liberated in UGC. And so like that's ultimately like what's really rewarding and encouraging and inspiring to continuing to stay motivated in the space.
Great answer, man. So moving on, I kind of want to spotlight something that felt like a win to you. So like whether it was like big or just personally meaningful, what's a moment with Future Trash that still makes you proud?
Looking back, there was this one moment. It was when Boom Tycoon launched in October, November of 23. So we're still relatively new to the scene and kind of like figuring out our thing. And Boom Tycoon went, it was our first kind of like viral moment, right? The game peaked at 17,000 concurrent. Actually, me and Scott still to this day have a joke because we stayed up all night, like just refreshing. So that was a really rewarding moment, to just see like, oh wow, like we can have like, critical mass of players playing our Tycoon, getting like all kinds of great feedback. But then it was, in the days or weeks after that, just kind of like seeing the organic, like user-generated content on YouTube, TikTok pop up, reviewing our game. And there was one video in particular from this kid. He couldn't have been more than, 10, 12 years old, kind of just like really like sincerely reviewing the game and talking about FODEs and like the characters and like making that association between this, made up name that we created and like our, iconic characters that we care and love about so much. And we're like, wow, like this is like the germination of our IP brand goals. Still a lot of wood to chop, a long way to go. But like that was like a really validating moment when we like found this, video on some kid's YouTube channel with like 4 subscribers, and he was like, reviewing the game for like 30 minutes.
That's amazing. And look, there's another tip. You're actually going on social media and seeing what people are playing your game, what they're posting and checking out, even if they have low subscribers. That is a really cool feeling. And it's like, it's literally just like, hey, this is how someone's playing my game. Like, and like, it's a really just free advice, and it's just like a play test, but right. It's permanent. I don't know, that's a really cool story. And I think I have a similar feeling too. I remember when people were kind of playing my game and being excited about it. I think that was just really fun. It's just a crazy feeling. So let's get into, we have a few more questions left. Kevin, this has been really informative already, man. I thank you so much for coming on, and the next few questions are going to be really fun. So I want to talk about like lessons from setbacks. So we've all had things not land how we hoped, right? But those moments always teach us something. Was there ever a map or a project that didn't go the way you expected? And what did you take away from that?
Yeah, we kind of touched on it earlier, but Boom City was, we sunk a lot into that. It was kind of our first really FODE IP-driven map in a while. We had done some combat PvP stuff right before, and we were really excited about it. And it got like, it had a pulse, like, and we actually saw a spike in our like Discord community. Like there was like a core dedicated small community of players who were like grinding it and really loved it, but it wasn't the critical mass volume of players that we needed to validate like, hey, like this is worth sinking more dev resources, more time into. But that's like one of the most challenging questions for this ecosystem, is like knowing when to move on or to double down. If you feel like you're just a few updates away, a few iterations away from, finding, that key game loop mechanic, something that's going to hold players in for longer, or keep players from dropping off quicker. So that one, like looking back on, like we might have moved on too quickly. But it's not to say we can't ever revisit it. In fact, we're talking about it. We still get comments on our Twitter and in our Discord saying like, hey, when's an update to Boom City coming? But that's a really good lesson. And I want to, like an inspiring story that made me look at things in a totally different way. Another shout out to one of the UEFN homies over at Zombie Escape, the Bloom Creative guys, Jay.
Oh, let's go. I love those guys.
Amazing. They're really good friends. And, Zombie Escape, when you look at like the update history, it's like white flag after white flag after white flag when they had like no players, like sub 50. And like they just didn't give up on that thing. And then they hit their inflection point, and now it's like, has all the signs of being a staple map that's going to last, a very long time. And so that to me was like an illuminating moment of being like, like when you really believe in something, like in one of your games, and you're not seeing the metrics you want after launch, like to not give up on it too quickly.
Yeah, that's great. I'm actually glad you brought that up, because I think a lot of people see the maps that come on and stay, right? Like, and like, okay, that's how it starts. But like, there are some maps that have kind of slowly crept in. There are some paths where they've come on the scene, done a few updates, had some really good success, kind of falls off, but they keep with those updates, and then it kind of comes back and it holds in the system. So I think, and that's just one of them, Zombie Escape. I know those guys over there as well, and they're hustlers, they're grinders, and they are doing it right. So that's a very, very cool story, and thanks for sharing that. So before we wrap things up, I got like 2 more questions left. What are you most excited about right now, whether that's something happening in UEFN or something coming to Future Trash?
What I'm most excited about is Boom Tycoon 2. As I mentioned before, Boom Tycoon was, one of our first games that really took off, which was incredible because it really is oozing with FODE, brand identity. And so we're finally getting the opportunity to revisit it and come out with the sequel. And we've been pouring a lot of work into it. It's really, really awesome. The tools are where they need to be for us to deliver the experience that we want. And so we're going to be playtesting it this week and hopefully releasing in the next week or two. On the FODE UEFN side, that's what we're most excited about. And then just, beyond that, continuing to explore different ideas, different collaborations, and overall just really, really optimistic about the future in UEFN.
Awesome. So that by the time this comes out, it'll be around here depending on when you're listening, when that game's out. So you guys will have to go check it out for sure. So this is the last question, and this is actually a brand new segment. So you are first. Sorry, Kevin. We're trying this out on you. We'll see if it sticks. Anyone listening, if you guys like this portion, please comment, let me know if you want to keep it. But I think it'll be kind of fun. So let's just bear with me here. We'll see how it goes. From now on, I'm going to be asking every guest fun rapid fire questions just to end the show, basically. And here's your rapid fire round. So you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. All right. Perfect. So these are the 3 questions, and I can let you know what they are again if you need to. So the first one is a game you wish you made, a moment during development that totally surprised you. What does your perfect no work day look like?
Okay, from the top. A game I wish I made, Pet Hero Adventures. I think those guys, Shock Maps, they do incredible stuff, and so kudos to them. A moment during development that totally surprised you. Doing a play test for one of our games that we were super confident about, and we distributed our playtest survey to, I think it was like 15 people. The responses were overwhelmingly negative. We got 0s out of 10. So what we thought was great. It was not resonating, and so that was kind of a reality check moment to say, hey, we need to make things simpler, easier to understand. Avoiding confusion is super important. Actually, you very early on in our friendship were one of the people who gave me that advice, saying within 3 seconds you need to know exactly what to do.
Yeah.
And so we try and, reinforce that as much as possible. So what does a perfect no work day look like? I love to go for a hike. I live here in Los Angeles, and there's plenty of great hiking with my wife, and then typically hang out by the barbecue on a nice sunny day.
Nice. Easy, man. No, that's fun. Thank you for entertaining that, and we'll see if this stays around, but I think it's kind of fun, actually. And
it is fun.
Great. Yeah, Kevin, seriously, this has been perfect. Thank you so much for coming on, and I'm excited to check out your new game coming out, and congrats on that. And everyone listening, in the descriptions, wherever you're listening, will be all of his social media. Please go check him out. Follow him. They are posting a lot of stuff about their journey. So definitely check them out. I appreciate it, Kevin. Thanks for coming on.
Yo, thank you so much for having me. I love talking about this stuff. Yeah, I love the community and always happy to share about our experiences and learn from others. So thank you so much. Been a really fun chat.
Same, man. Same, man. We'll have to do this again sometime.
Anytime.
All right, brother. Catch you later.
That's a wrap on this episode of the Creative Juice podcast. Huge thanks to Kevin Marciano and the entire FODE crew at Future Trash for sharing their journey. All of their links are in the description so you can explore their maps and follow their work. Share something you learned or drop feedback by tagging me at Immature Gamer X. I'll read and reply to every comment. If you enjoyed the show, hit like, follow, and subscribe. Listening on your favorite podcast app, please leave a quick rating. It helps out a lot. Don't hate, create.